Yo, what is up, my guys? It is I and Timothy. We are here to talk about the best comic book movie ever made. Daniel Espinosa, thank you so much. Sony Pictures, thank you so much. So this will be a full in-depth spoiler, just like last month's video with the Batman. We're going to talk about going in categories. We're going to talk about the story, the characters, some sequences that we may have liked, may have not liked, story elements that we may have liked, may have also not liked. And also obviously we're going to talk about the post-credit scene. And then we will give you guys our final score. And I might have a little treat for you guys at the end that we did in the last review. So
I also might have a treat at the end.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, we are going to be full of surprises today. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, here we go. So I guess I'll just start off I'll start with the general feelings and then I'll move into like the bullet points.
Okay.
It's a fine film. I don't think it's, oh my God, this is the worst comic book movie ever made. Because you look at that rating, 17, it's been fluctuating between 16 to 17%. I believe it's at 17 as of this moment. The thing that's interesting, the audience rating has gone up on Rotten Tomatoes. Specifically, it's only like 5%, but that's really rare because usually films go like, for example, the Batman was like at 90 something percent for audience, and then it dropped to like 85 and it's been firm there. So it's a solid 85%. This one could go up to the 70s. That is a drastic difference between 17 to 70 something percent. Right now it's at 69. And it's going to keep on going up, I think, at this rate, because it was at 63 on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday around like 9 p.m. Because that's when the first screenings officially ended. So people were able to, give their thoughts. I find that very telling for a movie like this because it's not like your typical MCU film. It is definitely that Sony Venomverse movie that I kind of came to expect. I wasn't expecting Shakespeare. I wasn't even expecting like Ant-Man. Like, that movie is just a good MCU film. It's fun. Some people would consider it a fine film. For me, this is that category of it's a fine film. It doesn't really do anything to advance the genre, but it doesn't do anything to destroy it. And how some critics have been just utterly taking a big fat crap on this, I don't agree with them. I really want to watch it again because granted, I've only seen it once. Hey, I might even hate it. Like the next time I watch it, I'm like, yeah, they were right. This movie is a piece of trash. Or I might be like, it's the same opinion, or I might like it even more. But overall, yeah, it was just a fine film. There's issues, obviously. That's why I say it's fine, but I don't know. I still kind of had a somewhat enjoyable experience by the end of it.
Okay.
That's just my thoughts.
Okay. Well, for the audience, I'll tell you what happened was Joseph Curtis and I reviewed the Batman together, and we were trying to think, what's the next movie we could talk about together? Because he and I just love talking about movies together. And it's gotten to the point now where we even love talking about equipment together because we're both into the art of it, the craft of it. And he said to me, like, maybe another comic book movie, Morbius is coming up. And I was like, you want to review Morbius together? And he was like, yeah. And that's when I realized I need better friends. This is a bad movie.
I knew it. I had a feeling, guys. I had a feeling.
But
it's honestly, it could be so bad it's good. Like, I feel like it's a film people will look back on and be like, wow, that is
all right.
Bad.
Joseph, wait right here, and I'm gonna make a case. I'm gonna make a case regarding this movie. All right.
Oh no!
Back. I need to present my case for this movie. Give me a quick second. All right.
Oh my gosh! Jump cut, guys! Jump cut. He'll be back right now. Oh my God, dude! That's like one of the. I'm gonna put the music in the background, whatever the heck that song is. Bro, that song. Oh my gosh. That whole sequence.
I lost my mind. And I know you don't want to have graphic stuff on your channel, but if this movie was rated R, I'd be afraid that I was about to see a scene right in the, like, I was like, we're like one step away from this villain. Just
Do I have your consent to keep that in there?
Yeah, you do.
Okay,
You have
okay,
my
okay.
consent to keep that in.
Oh
I
my
was
God.
like, if I didn't know this movie was PG-13, I'd be like 85% convinced we're about to watch this man on a 35-foot screen. I was like, what is happening?
Oh my God.
When I saw your little minute review, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a conversation.
Dude, it's like, it's one of those scenes where I just couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, you're not going to see this in Iron Man 4 or whatever, Captain America 4. You're not going to, that's why I think it's so unique. Cause it's like, this is really like a film. I don't know. Like, it's a movie that definitely, when people were saying it feels like an early 2000s Marvel film, I get what they mean.
I
really
get what
do.
That means too. I do.
Because like, it's like rush plotting, incoherent storytelling. It was very choppily edited. There's obviously a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. I really think there is like a 2 hour and 10 or 15 minute cut out there. And I think it would have been better. This, to me, it has to do with the studio. I feel like the studio, ever since Spider-Man No Way Home, that's why they pushed it back. That's another topic. But yeah, it's crazy.
I don't totally agree with that. I don't. And really? That's one of the points I have on here.
Okay,
go ahead. Whatever. No. I'll go in whatever order you want to go in. But
so your general feeling, because I wanted to make sure. So you believe it is a bad film?
Yes.
It's just
bad. Yes.
Okay. Well, he thinks it's bad, and I respect him because I might even feel the same way after my second viewing.
And I feel bad saying any movie is bad. A movie can be so bad that it's good, and it circles back around to having something to contribute. But this movie, I feel bad saying it's bad because I genuinely do feel like it really had nothing to contribute, and so many people worked so hard on it. And that breaks my heart. That's what breaks my heart the most. I can't remember who it was. There's a movie critic out there somewhere who said at the end of every movie, no matter how bad he is, he gives an applause during the credits because he knows people worked really hard on it. And that's what nice. Went through my mind when I watched this movie. And also, I'll admit there are two, I guess, mid-credit scenes. But I went on as the movie was rolling the credits, I went online just to check what was there, and it said that there was mid-credits, but not post-credits. So I watched the first mid-credit scene and thought it was done, and didn't realize that there were 2 sequences mid-credits and 0 post-credits. So I had to YouTube.
And you wish it ended right there. You're like, oh no.
Well, I just YouTubed the other one, and and we can talk about that later. But it's the first time I think I ever preemptively left a Marvel theater because I just wanted to Google and be like, is there more? No. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Oh my God.
But whatever order you want to talk about things, we could talk about things. And
yes,
because I'm loaded, I'm ready to go.
Basically, like I said, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in my overall like brief feelings for it. Pacing was very weird. The sequences, like from scene to scene, not for all of it, but for a good half, I felt like moments were just going by, and it didn't really have this coherent linear storytelling. It was just like, here's a flashback. Oh, let's jump 25 years later to when he's graduating, and none of this character development for him. Like, how did he get there with the doctor that helped him? I actually liked the flashback. I'm not going to lie. I liked the aspect of, Milo and Michael becoming friends, and this guy was like a father figure to them. I wish they fleshed it out a bit more. And then Jared Harris is like in and out throughout the film. And then, his character, just what they do to him, it's like whatever. But anyways, it felt like they had a moment and they're like, great, check that off the list. It didn't feel like, oh, this feels organic to the story. It just felt like, yep, here's another scene happening. I found that kind of weird, and I think there's a reason. The other thing with the story is I feel like it was a film that actually had plot points that made sense. But I think the studio went in and was like, you need to chop this up to 1 hour and 45 minutes. And the director was probably like, okay, let's try to work that out. Because I really feel like this was a movie that was over 2 hours, at least by like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I don't think that would have saved it. I I know a lot of people, because of Zack Snyder's Justice League, want to believe that there's a cut out there that could save a bad movie for every bad movie, and I just don't think it's true. Because
and I don't believe that for every film, but I'm not saying that this would be like compared to like JL to Zack Snyder's JL. Like I'm not making entirely that comparison, but I am saying like there are moments that I felt like they cut out a lot of scenes that maybe would have helped at least with the flow.
I would believe they cut out gore. That's what I would believe they cut out.
Oh,
like
I don't. This scene?
Yeah, where the guy's like, and nothing's coming out. I know everyone's.
I was like,
about that.
I heard the sound effect, and I was like, why is there no blood?
It's funny that everyone's harping on that for this, because TV has to do that all the time. But they're harping on it with this because it's a freaking vampire, and those vampire movies are pretty relentlessly violent. Yeah. But I know you're talking about story a little bit, and what I want to tie into that is the screenplay.
Oh yeah,
it's bad.
It's bad.
Have you looked up the writers for this movie?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. That The Last Witch Hunter. Gods of Egypt.
Have you seen Gods of Egypt?
Yes.
Oh man, I watched it because my favorite podcast, How Did This Get Made, did an episode on it, and I was like, I guess I need to see this movie. And man,
it's bad. It's one of the worst films and I can see why it could be like a guilty pleasure for people. Like I will say this: the writers, I think there was 2 people, and they're both accredited for this and the films like Last Witch Hunter, Power Rangers, which I actually liked. I know I get some hate for that, but I actually like Power Rangers.
Power Rangers and Lost in Space are probably the 2 most liked pieces of media under this writing team's like resume.
And that's not a great start for a movie like this. That's like, I remember I said it a couple weeks back, be like, guys, I'm kind of worried for Morbius. That was before reviews dropped, because I looked at who wrote the film. I was like, this is a bad sign. Like, even though, for me, even Dracula Untold, I don't think it's a good movie at all. But it's definitely a guilty pleasure. And when I was listening to the script, when I was hearing the lines that were being said, I was like, oh, these are definitely the same writers for Dracula Untold and Last Witch Hunter. It just like, and I will say this, like when it comes to the story and the script, Jared Leto actually does a fine job with what he's given. It's his most chillest performance, which is kind of surprising because he's playing a vampire.
I mean, he was fine. Again, it's one of those things where it's hard for me to pin where it went wrong, because whenever an actor does a take, there's a director who's cool with that take. And there were several times where I just was sitting in my seat going, yeah, that's the take we're going with. All right, let's keep filming the next shot. I just could not help but feel that way watching this at several points. I also had a great time just imagining Jared Leto and Matt Smith snarling at each other on set with no CGI. I need to see that. I would pay them to be their cameraman just for the hilarious memories of that. Like that's I want to see like the behind the scenes footage of this.
Dude, Matt Smith. I will say this just real quickly. Like I'll say it's connected to story because it is part of the script. It's the characters. It's the heartbeat of it. Like I loved their relationship in the sense of like I loved more so the idea rather than the execution for majority of it. But there was moments where I was like, oh, this is actually like I kind of enjoyed this moment where you do feel like at the heartbeat of this film. I think it's about health and taking. Well, like from just viewing it, like to me, I felt like the message in certain moments, especially, is about how we take for granted our bodies, our health, and how when
right, and that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's just the execution. I will agree.
There was no pacing to show Jared being like, I have my life back. Like there wasn't any heft or weight. And the scene where he goes back to the lab and he's doing all the testing and stuff, I was completely lost on how much time passed. I don't know if they said something or did something. He didn't like date his journal entries. Not that I remember. I feel like there is so much troubleshooting that would need to go into what he's trying to figure out about his new condition that I feel like he would have been there for a long time. and someone would have walked in on him.
Yeah, it's just, the story, it definitely felt like it was chopped in throughout the entire film. It was very choppy, and that has to do with the script, but also I think it does have to do with the studio. I really do. I feel like Sony had an idea, and this guy, Daniel, probably came in with the writers, and they also expressed this idea for Morbius, and it was probably fine. I don't think it's like amazing. Like, to me, my expectations for this film wasn't to be like, it's going to be better than Spider-Man Homecoming. It's going to be better than Venom. I just wanted a fine origin film. And that's what I kind of got. But I really like looking at it and thinking back on what was, conceived with the story. It felt like such studio meddling, like with Fan Four Stick. That's why I think some people are comparing it to that, because it's like so apparent, especially in the third act of that film, where it's like a studio obviously didn't like where this was going, so they messed it up. And I don't think it's that bad where it's like, one of the most controversial behind the scenes. I don't think Daniel was yelling at people, bringing his dogs on set and, yelling at everybody, be like, this is my movie and you're ruining it. I think he still thought his movie was being made, but I think there was a mandate and they had to trim it. And there was some elements that just got left on the table, which happens to every film. And I'm not saying it would have made the movie like an 8 for me, but I do wish that there was that just, it felt like there needed to be more breathing room for the story. And it felt like this was happening, and the movie just ends. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like if there was stuff left on the table, I still don't think it would have saved it. Like, I guess that's how I feel. If there was stuff on the table still, it wouldn't have saved it. I think, honestly, the biggest studio interference this movie had was the fact that it got made at all. Sony is trying I don't want to say they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, because what do you do with a cake that you can't eat? Why even have it? They're trying to eat every cake.
We're gonna do everything.
That's what it feels like, and we can get more into that because that ties into kind of this MCU Sony split. But I felt like the screenplay was just not good. The pacing was all over the place. As soon as they introduced Milo as a child, I said, that's the villain. You're like, oh, that's the villain. The scene where he comes in and sees Jared Leto's condition for the first time is bonkers bad. It's a horrible scene. When he first comes in and sees his best friend, like, needs to drink blood and this and that, in the span of about, I want to say 2.5 minutes, like, he should be kind of like terrified and scared for his friend and mystified and have every question in the world. And somehow the writers managed to have him leave that scene mad at him.
I know.
And I was like,
that's another issue with the script, where it's like this character makes these random choices, which I think they hinted at towards the beginning when he was a kid, when he hit that boy. And it's like, I get it, he's vengeful, but then he turns into like a psychopath murderer.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get that he's angry, but that felt like such a character shift.
His 180 was completely unbelievable. Like, he immediately has an immense disregard for life that he did not have before, to the point where he's like threatening to kill his girlfriend, and he like murders a bunch of cops and he murders the dudes outside the club. He does not give any F about like anything. And I didn't find his switcheroo to be believable at all.
No, yeah, I agree. This is actually going to the second category. Yeah, we're already in it.
Yeah, I was gonna say he went cartoon villain bad immediately.
And I don't know why, but it's kind of like, and this is kind of weird, because I think Venom 1 is better than Venom 2, regardless of how critics literally jumped up by like 30 extra percent. I think it's like at 60 something compared to.
I have not seen those yet, but I've seen clips of both.
I personally think, if not, this is probably either the best one, shockingly, of the Venom Sony Spider-Man universe, whatever the heck it's called, or it might be the second best. It might be the second best, because
that's not encouraging at all.
I mean, yeah, I feel like you might enjoy Venom 1 more, but not Venom 2. I don't know. That personally, I feel like you won't enjoy Venom 2 as much. but maybe you'll be like, well, it was shorter, so that's why I liked it more, Jack. Because it's literally like 85 minutes long. But I actually enjoyed this one a bit more, even though it is kind of a carbon copy of Venom. Like it really is. It's like, oh, this person discovers he has something inside of him, and then another person wants to get the same power, and then they fight. Sounds like Venom. And I've seen that comparison, and they're not wrong, because it is literally that.
It's not the first set of Marvel movies that would copy each other and still like some Marvel movies have copied each other and still came out good. And some people might come after me and give me flack for this, but Thor Ragnarok came out, I think it was 3 months before Black Panther. And on paper, those movies are the same. Both movies are about a king who's a father who stowed away a legitimate heir to the throne. And the protagonist loses their power and has to get a ragtag group of people together to get it back and fight this heir to the throne who's become a threat. Both movies on paper, beat for beat, are the same. And they're both good, but no one compares those two movies together because they feel so incredibly different. Yeah. They feel so incredibly different, but on paper, the plot points are almost exactly the same.
So, like, literally every scene with Tyrese Gibson and that one dude, exposition, and then that one guy, the cop, he is so not funny. I heard he's funny outside of this film, and that's great. But in this movie, every line he had, every line they gave him,
the cop with the holy water.
Oh God, yeah. I was like, are you serious? Yeah, see, I hated him.
I honestly, I think he was probably the best part of this movie.
Dude, to me, he did a terrible job at acting, and it felt like his lines were so like, it felt like they were just like, hey, we need some funny stuff. Say some funny stuff, because this movie might get too serious for people. And it's like, I actually don't mind it being too serious. Can we actually stick with that for once?
It was probably the best part of this movie, but both of their reactions to everything happening around them were like,
oh yeah.
I was like, guys, you should.
I was like, is this normal?
You should be losing your minds.
They're like, oh, vampires. Yeah. Vampire murderers. Okay. And I'm like, well, and here's the other thing. We don't know what this universe really is like. Like, we don't know what their average day is. If this was taking place
in the MCU, I could believe that maybe they'd be like, okay, here's another one. But if they're in like the Sony verse, I would think they're still kind of a little bit green to how chaotic things are in super.
I think it's in the Venom verse. I really do think it's in the Venom verse, because they're still not fully answering that question.
I think so too, but the Venom verse is not answering which Spider-Man universe it's in. But I can't imagine it's anything but Garfield's.
I think it's Garfield's.
I can't imagine it's anything else.
Because they want to, obviously, from the reception of No Way Home, super side thought, because of the reception of No Way Home, they love, like, everybody is saying that he was probably the standout of the film, which I agree.
Yeah, I think I do too, honestly. Him and Willem.
Oh my gosh, William Dafoe, amazing. But I really feel like it's going to be his, and I wouldn't be mad if it was Toby's, but because of Andrew, because of how things ended and where they wanted to take the future of it. It was the Sinister Six, and guess what's happening? Obviously, because of the post-credit scene. We'll get to that later, but obviously that's the end goal. They want Andrew Garfield, I believe. I really think they want Andrew Garfield to have his redemption moment, but it's how you do it. And I think what they're trying to do here, and this goes, I'll just say it still goes with the characters, because I really actually like this conversation here. When it comes to the Sinister Six and Sony really, really trying to get it done, because obviously they want it done. But it's, I really feel like they think because they're doing origin films, they're doing it the right way, which is right. Like that is the right way. Like, you should take a character, flesh them out. Let's get to know them. Let's get compelled by them. And obviously with Venom, even though it didn't get great reviews, people are still enjoying it. We got a sequel. It made $800 million, the first one. People obviously want to see more. They're doing something right. Morbius, we'll see what happens with the box office. But I feel like that's their approach. Like, they're making Kraven the Hunter, Madam Web. And that's a good approach, but you need to do this one thing. You need to actually make a good film. You need to, and I know that's harder, like, it's not easy to make a good film, but you should probably hire, they should get Kevin Feige in on the meetings. And second, they need to hire good writers. Like, I want a sequel. I actually want to see where Morbius goes. I think the character design is great. I thought his look, and I wish they would have delved more into the vampire kind of lore in that world, but maybe we'll get that in the second one. But I really like the idea of Morbius, and I think Jared Leto deserves a franchise for his own. So character-wise, I wanted to kind of end that part real quick with Matt Smith.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Matt Smith, because I know I can talk, but I want to hear you talk about Matt Smith.
He's a cartoon villain. Like I said, the scene where he comes in and first sees his condition, that scene had so much potential to be like intense, heartbreaking, and relatable, because he spent his whole life not being able to live life on the terms he wants to. And there was like so much room for Leto's character, Michael, to be like, listen, we can't do this. We don't know what it does. I'm trying to troubleshoot. I'm trying to figure it out. I could kill people. Like, I could kill people and not remember it, and it scares me. I'm scared of what I am right now, and I don't know everything about it. And it turned into just like him seeing his best friend drink blood and be like, I want to do that. It was like this. There was
like
so
a
much
plot point with Amazing Spider-Man 2, where it's like he wants the blood.
Amount of untapped potential, because I recently rewatched, and sometimes when I say rewatched, it's a little loose because I have two computers at my workstation. So YouTube plays on the one over here, and I work on the one over here that you're on. And the entertainment computer recently replayed for me the 1990s animated Spider-Man cartoon from Fox Kids way back in the day. And for that show, they had to neuter Morbius because that's too much for kids. He doesn't bite people. He has like suckers on his hands. And he doesn't suck blood. They had to use the word plasma. And he was still more compelling than he was in this movie because he was tragic, because he had a relationship with someone that he genuinely loved and cared about, and he was terrified of hurting her. And it was just a lot more compelling, and they had to neuter him for TV, but the writers cared about the character more than how I felt the writers cared about the character here. There was just so much, like, eventually the character has to grapple with his humanity so much that he gets kind of a grip on himself, and he teams up with Blade to fight other vampires. I was like, that's awesome. And we can get more into the Sony MCU split, but MCU is doing Blade, and I feel like by splitting Sony and MCU, they kind of miss a bit of potential with what they could do with having these characters get together. And like literally Saturday morning cartoons did a better job. They just did. They did a better job with this character. I felt much worse for the cartoon version of the character because he was angry and frustrated and scared at being chased by Spider-Man, but wanted to be with the woman he loved, but couldn't be because he was terrified of hurting her. Nothing like that was in this movie. Yes, he's scared of hurting his girlfriend, who, spoiler, he does bite her neck when she's about to die. And out of all the people who get bit in the neck in this movie, she is the only one to come back. No reason given, no logic, no nothing. Her eyes just open, they're red, and then 2 shots later, the credits are on. And I was sitting in my seat going,
I think it's because she's drinking it. I think it's because she's drinking his blood. That's why. Because if you remember, there's
at the end. Yeah, she bites his lip.
I think that's why, because I think that is part of vampire lore. Because I remember being like, "Oh, is she gonna turn into a vampire?" And then I was like, "Oh, yep, I was right. She turns into a vampire," which obviously is the tease for the sequel. And okay, jumping on that thought, the romance. It was so out of nowhere.
Yeah, you felt romance in this movie? I didn't.
Well, I mean, the relationship aspect. I was like, I mean, it's not like I didn't see it coming, because like obviously it's an attractive woman. It's an attractive man.
It's a footnote.
They're gonna kiss.
It's not even about it being like organic or inorganic. It was just completely unimportant. It was a total footnote in the movie.
And I will say this though, because some people, like, I remember like looking at a review that said like, yeah, but there was hints of like, he does care for her. And I'm like, I do get that. But I thought of more of it like, that's my coworker. That's my friend that I've worked with for such a long time. How dare you hurt her? What that scene when he turns into Morbius and he looks back. I thought that scene was great. Like the first moment when Morbius shows up, I genuinely like that. And I felt, that connection for somebody he cares about while he's still being controlled by like this demon inside of him, which I liked that. But it definitely felt out of nowhere when it came to the scene where they were hugging each other and he said, "Closer, come closer. I'm Jared Leto. I'm like 50 years old, but I look 30. I'm so hot. Do you want to go to Camp Mars?"
I got you a dead rat. No, I just felt like the romance was a footnote. It's not about whether or not, like, it just didn't really feel like it mattered. The leaps in logic that the screenplay has him jump to are honestly inhuman. They are not. This is not how normal people interact or react in an extreme situation like this. Like if I walked in and one of my sisters was needing to like drink, I'd be like, I would have every question in the world. And I feel like me wanting to be like them would be one of the last things on my mind. It was just the leaps in logic that they threw at this villain were far too big. He was cartoonishly bad. He had a huge disregard for life way too fast. And you knew he was the villain like right away. Like there was no question. That's how I feel about the villain. I feel like the options in villains were limited because when they go up to the writers, because of like the Sony MCU split, their pick of the litter is pretty slim, all things considering. They can't just pick any character because now everyone has to be careful not to step on each other's characters. And it kind of limits the possibilities of what the movie could do. However, that doesn't mean this movie had to be bad just because Milo was the villain. There was a lot of room for them to take this script in a lot of really interesting directions. And the movie actively sidestepped every single interesting direction this could have gone.
And I think to jump on the wagon for Matt Smith, my take on it was, yeah, you're right. He was a cartoonish villain. And I was 110% for it. Like it felt like he had the most fun in the film. Like on set, he's like, "I'm ready. It's game day, baby. I'm Milo. I'm Milo the psychopath." And then Jared Leto's like, "Dang, this guy's even more method than me." Because like
Jared didn't go super method for this movie.
Yeah. And I was, some people have their, thoughts towards Jared Leto and how he approaches a film. And sometimes he can be a jerk on set and send people.
All of their thoughts have to do with Suicide Squad.
Yes. And it's like, okay, I get that. That was one experience. You can't just judge the dude off of that. He's done so many amazing projects like Requiem for a Dream, Dallas Buyers Club. He's a phenomenal actor and performer. And with this, it was like his chillest performance. But Matt Smith, man, I agree with you in the sense of like his decisions are so random. It's like he's this person, then all of a sudden he's this psychopathic vampire killer, murderer, serial killer. And if I had to stretch for a reason, I think obviously the reason being is that he's never felt power like this before. And also it is like almost another entity inside of you. And I feel like
I don't know that. It never came off to me like there was. It never came off to me like, at least, granted, my only other Morbius related experience is the 90s cartoon, but he was still like he would lose control, but he didn't turn into like another person. It was it's not a Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah. It's still him, but it's a more advanced version of him. So, and I think but that's the issue too. It's like, if I have to guess why he's like this, that means the script didn't do its job of explaining his reasons of doing his actions in the film. Like and that's where I'll say, yeah, that's partially that. No, that's not partially. That is on the screenwriters, because I shouldn't have to, that makes sense for his, villain arc. It's like, he was his friend for years. Yeah, he hit a kid and beat him up because the dude took his friend's note that was personally meant for him.
Yeah,
I would get mad too. Does that mean I'm going to turn into a psychopathic murderer later on? Because once I get power, I'm going to be like, yeah, some guy hit me in the back of the head. I'm going to murder him and all of his friends. It's like, okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. Like, I feel like maybe there was more scenes. This is just another stretch where they could have evolved that idea, where there could have been moments of, a violent tendency, I would have then totally stood for the actions that Milo does then, because we see these hints of him becoming this bitter person. Because I did get the aspect of he is bitter, he wants to be healthy, but just because he's fighting for his life and just because he's scared he's going to die doesn't mean the moment he gets power, I'm going to have revenge on everybody that's not like us. They're all going to see every one of them. And that's literally what his performance is like. But like I said, I really do love it because it's just so out there. It's not like
chewing scenery for sure.
I don't know. And like I said, maybe next time I watch it and I'll be like, yeah, it was just, I don't know what they were doing with the get my button up on. Oh yeah. Whatever the heck that song was. I'm like, if you guys are trying to be modern, I've never heard of that song in my entire life. Vampire sequences is the next category. And we can mix that, we'll mix that in with CGI. Vampire sequences and the CGI. So for me, overall, I really liked when he was learning his abilities. I wish we had more. Like you said, you were talking about,
me too.
What's the time frame like? I do agree with that, where it's like, yeah, I feel like he would have taken like weeks, if not like at least a month, showing his progress from him being to this. Like he's at level 1, now he's at level 20 with his like experience of being like this other being.
And I'm not saying do it like this movie, but the first Iron Man did a great job of that. Did a really good job of
showing his advancements, showing his failures, showing his successes. I agree with you, man.
Did a really good job of it. This movie had a chance to do it in a really compelling way because part of what he's struggling with is his self-control while he's trying to figure out the entirety of his condition without hurting anybody. Again, so much potential for something really cool.
Yeah. And I agree. I think there's one thing that I did like though, and they kept on repeating back, and I did feel like the burden of it, because I literally was starting to think about it. Like, imagine if I was in his position. He just got healed. He's fully healthy, but every 4 hours and like 22 minutes, he has to drink this stupid sack of blue blood or whatever, that synthetic blood.
So close to 420, but I think your subconscious knew it and just moved it a tick.
just a little bit for the viewers, for the younger viewers.
Yeah, right.
But I did feel that aspect of like, dude, literally, like imagine he's trying to go to bed and then he gets up at like 4 hours of sleep. He's like, I just thought about that. I'm like, that must be so annoying. Like, It is a burden. Like, I felt that because they would always go back. Like, I need it. I check my watch. I need to drink some more. I need to drink some more. I'm going to freak out. And then the scene where she like pricks her finger and he's like just shaking. I liked those moments, but I wish they had more of that, like those kind of elements, even with Milo, because even though he's treating it like a blessing, there has to be like this other side effect that treats it as a curse. Because when Jared Leto says that to Milo, it's like, it's not a blessing or it's not a gift. It's a curse, dude. You don't want this. Like there are ideas and there are slight moments of brilliance, but get shattered down by either people's reactions, like with Milo turning into a crazy villain, or when it comes down to the choppy editing where you feel something for just a second and then it's like, next scene.
Yeah.
We can't breathe.
So I don't mean to harp back on the screenplay, but like if people would just, like even the scene where they're interrogating Michael, the two cops, and he's got the holy water and all the stuff that you hated, but I was kind of fine with. I was just like, yes, this world is not exposed to like MCU level shenanigans, but there is Spider-Man, there is Venom, like there are things out there. Part of me was just like, why doesn't he just say what happened? Like, why doesn't he actually just like be honest and say what happened?
Honestly,
they already think he killed them.
Yeah, and if he just said like,
he turns into a vampire and breaks out of the prison in front of them, and they're still like, we gotta take him down. I'm like, like they should be understanding there's more at play here than they realize, and the writers just do not give the characters the nuance or growth to even remotely try to adapt to the fact that a vampire just broke through the thick steel bulletproof glass wall of their prison.
I liked that shot. I remember during that whole experience watching that scene, I was like, this is actually getting kind of compelling right now for at least for me when he goes to confront Milo and he's like, Milo!
Yeah.
Like I felt that aggression from Jared Leto. I felt like he needed to talk to his friend and get to the bottom of this. And he's like, what are you doing? What are you becoming? That's the aspect that I did like when it came down to them, because you felt their relationship ended because of the actions of Milo.
Yeah.
The only thing holding it back was Milo
But
being that person.
But when the two cops, when they ask him like what happened, and he just goes, "I can't answer that." I was like, "Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
You can say I was on the boat. I did an experiment. I completely lost control. I have to drink blood. I think I killed these people, but I don't remember everything. But I can't figure out what else possibly could have happened. And I'm afraid if I'm in this room for too long, I might kill you too. You need to put me back."
Yep. And he's like, you wouldn't understand, essentially. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't understand. I'm like, okay. I feel like
you wouldn't get it. It's a curse. And I was like, oh my God.
I'm like, do you want to get out of jail? Do you want to have a better future? Because right now you are just choosing to die in the cell.
But not only that, by honestly not telling them exactly what was happening, he was endangering them. And everybody in that building was in danger of being killed and completely out of his control, because he won't remember it. If he would have just been like, this is what happened. This is what I can assume happened because I don't remember it. She's still alive. Don't know how or why. I know the movie wants to be like, deep down, he knew it was her, so he didn't kill her. Fine, whatever. Do your thing, movie. But if he had actually just not taken the year one drama student route of being like, you wouldn't understand, I can't answer your questions, like everybody in the movie would have been better off for it. Everybody. I just thought that was bad. But anyway, CGI. Yeah, people are chewing out this movie for the CGI, and part of me gets it. My issue is not with the CGI so much as it is the slow motion, because no slow motion shot felt like it actually had a point or something to communicate to me that only slow motion could do. It felt just kind of like a look what we can do. A lot of people are like, the wispy smoke effects are weird. I didn't think that was weird. In vampire lore and mythos, vampires actually have the ability to turn into mist. To me, it actually kind of makes sense that there is like traces of that ability inherently in his powers.
And I think that's why Daniel chose that creative choice. And I don't think people understand that. To them, they're just covering up more bad CGI with more bad CGI. And I'm like, I just don't think you understand what he was trying to do. And even granted, that CGI wasn't even bad. That's why, because on Rotten Tomatoes, it literally says this I'll just say like the part about the graphics. On the consensus, it says uninspired effects. And I'm like, okay. To me, I thought that wasn't uninspired. I thought that was a very creative choice. And I've seen bland CGI and I've seen bad CGI, and they're saying it's both essentially. And I completely and utterly disagree. I thought the CGI for Morbius and Matt Smith's transformation, I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic. So to me, I just thought that was jarring. I felt like the critics just were saying something negative just to say something else negative about a film that they already didn't like. And they're like, yeah, and also the CGI sucked. I'm like, okay, what? I understand bad plot, bad pacing, bad character decisions, but bad CGI. I've seen Marvel films, to be honest, some shots in Spider-Man No Way Home are worse than shots in this film. I said it. There are some scenes in that movie that don't look like they were finished. And they even admit that they were still editing the film while it was in theaters. That's a Sony problem, I think. But no, yeah, I really feel like going back to your thing with the whole mist, that is something with vampire lore.
Yeah, I was fine with that. Yeah. Here's what I'm not fine with is, and the thing is, the fight scenes, some of them were so dark that it was hard to tell in the moment. What's not okay is if you use an effect like that to cover up otherwise shoddy work. Don't do that. Have this, commit to it, and make it good. To me, it makes sense that they kind of had that ability. They didn't go all the way and have them completely turn into mist, which I'm fine with, because it's clear that there's kind of one thing the movie did kind of communicate is that with time and with effort, their abilities will get stronger. I do think it moved a little bit too quickly. Like he learned to fly more or less immediately when he needed to. And also he took a huge risk the first time he learned how to fly. He was like, I've never flown before, but I'm going to jump in front of this train.
I'll get to that scene later. It's in the next category, but that's funny. I've never done this, but I'm going to do it in the most dangerous way possible that will lead to death because this is a Marvel film, baby.
For real. I want to see a cut where that didn't work.
I'll say this. That flying scene was a lot better than this one. You know which one I'm talking about.
I know what I'm talking about. The only thing that bothered me about that flying scene was one, that shot, and two, Battinson should have died. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care what armor you're wearing. That amount of concussive force to your head should kill you.
I still, I love that. That anyway, makes me laugh every time when I see that scene.
But the CGI, I was for the most part like fine with. It's just I thought the slow motion was goofy. I thought it was pointless, and it was kind of hard to see the fights. And as cool as kind of like the idea of the mist effects were, I feel like they were kind of used to cover up some of the more shoddy work when it came to the fights, and also kind of cover up the fact that they were trying to keep this movie PG-13.
Yeah, I feel like this movie, I mean, it wouldn't have made it a whole lot better, obviously, if it was rated R, but it would have added more texture to the violence. And it's the same thing that people have an issue with Venom.
Yeah.
Venom is a killer. Venom literally eats people. And when you do a scene like this, he like goes to bite somebody, but then they cut it away to just his back. You just see the motion. It doesn't do the same thing for actually me seeing him eat somebody's head. Like, I mean,
no. And if the screenplay went another way, it still could have. You can cut away from gratuitous violence and have it be impactful if the writing and the shots and the characters are done well. You can. Plenty of things have done that before, where your imagination fills in the blank more harshly than any visual could, and it still hits you harder.
Okay, so next category is favorite scene, which you probably won't unless you do. But your favorite scene, what is your, if you had to pick, okay, I guess this scene was fine. Which one would it be? And please don't tell me it's with the stupid cop. Please don't tell me. With the holy water.
It is the last fight underground with Milo and Morbius, and only for one reason. And that is because I actually thought the idea of using the bats and controlling them in a swarm was actually a pretty cool idea.
Oh, yeah. I actually like that, where he's like just pushing them more towards him so he can get closer to stab him.
It was a cool idea. It was almost like he was controlling a tendril or a tentacle made of 10,000 pieces. Like it was it was a really cool idea. That was probably it. Like I actually said to myself out loud, okay, that's pretty cool.
You want to know the shot that screamed Batman Begins to me?
Where he gets in the tank in the lab.
Yes. I was
not only did that shot scream it, so did the score.
Oh, yeah.
The score, because of those two notes, bum, bum. Well, in Morbius, it was like bum, bum, but that lower note, they put that same higher note together.
Yep.
And I was like,
I'm like, you're not Batman Begins, but
do you hear yourselves?
So for my favorite scene, I would say pretty much the entire moment when he realizes that it's Milo, and then when he flies away. I think that whole, I think it's like about 5 minutes long, maybe 7. That whole sequence I thought was my favorite because I did feel a little bit of the tension. I felt like, especially with the performances
when he breaks out of the jail.
Yep, when he breaks out of the jail and when he fights him at the train station, because I think that takes place right after because he's looking for him. And then I don't know why. I just really felt compelled during that whole sequence when they were acting it out. And then when he was getting arrested, he killed all those people. And yes, he definitely turned into a cartoon villain.
Yeah.
But because of his performance, it kind of made me forget of how bad the movie was. And I was just so locked in to Matt Smith. I was like, this guy, there's a reason why he's a great actor, and he is giving it his all right now. He is the best actor in this film. No offense to Jared Leto. I think he did a fine job. But Matt Smith, he took the script and he made it as good as possible for the screen and for the audience. Like at the end of the day, like when I watch a movie too, I mean, obviously I want a good film, but I want a movie that makes me forget about what I'm thinking about in my daily life. And every single time when I watch that scene, that's why it's my favorite, because I will just forget about my problems and I will kick back and watch Matt Smith turn into a psychopath.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good action sequence. I think so. And I like the scene where Jared Leto is like, I'm not going to fight you. I don't want to fight you. And that's the difference between him and his friend. And
if I were Jared, I would have been like, you just killed 5 cops. We're going to fight.
No, yeah. And like
killed 5 dudes who don't know which way is up right now.
and to be fair, maybe he was just like, I don't want to make this even worse because I don't know if I'm going to be able to control myself. Maybe I'm going to kill this guy and I don't want to kill him. Obviously, spoilers. Right. Obviously, this is spoiler talk. He does kill him in a way that's not as brutal, in a way that was probably the easiest possible way to kill somebody he cares about. Which I did feel a little bit just because of his performance. I did feel it a little bit like Jared Leto. He feels like he lost his girlfriend and he lost his mentor and he lost his best friend. I felt like that's what they were trying to go for at the end of the day with the film, like a vampire tragedy film where he loses everything. I got that idea, but like I said, it's a great idea, not so great execution. But with that whole sequence, I thought it was probably the best execution when it comes to the film felt elevated for a moment where it was like, oh, I feel the threat. This guy's just going to tear up the town. This guy doesn't care. He's going to kill everybody in his sight. And then he needed to take a moment to get away. And I felt like, I don't know why, I really loved the way you felt him feeling like the wind and the music. I thought that was a good moment with the music. And he just goes for it. Even though granted, it was his first time and it was like, you didn't want to do this before, but now you're going to do it in front of a train where you probably could die if you don't do it right. Now into our last category, post-credit scene. The thing that I have here, I wrote it down.
Yeah.
So many questions.
Holy, it's baffling. It's baffling.
And you can go first because this will probably just be a back and forth, honestly.
It makes no sense.
You can start.
It makes no sense. The movie cuts to show a crack in the sky, and the audience is left to extrapolate the notion that this crack in the sky is one of the many cracks in the sky at the climax of Spider-Man No Way Home. In this moment, these cracks in the sky take everybody back to their home universe.
Yep.
Except Michael Keaton. For some reason, it takes him out of his and puts
even
him
Venom.
In this one.
Venom gets sent back to his universe. And if they're in the same universe, it makes more sense for Michael Keaton to then, he'll visit Sony for some reason, but then he'll go back home. So obviously time has passed for the second post-credit scene. Why didn't he go back home?
So Venom gets sucked out of his and put into MCU for like 4 minutes. And then
literally wakes up, goes to a bar, and then he leaves.
Yeah. But for some reason, so he gets taken out from where he belongs and put somewhere where he doesn't. Keaton gets taken from where he does belong and put somewhere he doesn't. So, and then the movie in this, because he's now at the resolution of No Way Home, where everybody's where they're supposed to be and he's not, he's popped into a jail cell in an alternate universe and they let him out because they don't know who he is. And then for some reason, they have another post-credit scene where Morbius is driving into like, I don't know, a field, a desert or he's just driving out into the middle of nowhere.
Even though he can literally just fly there.
Yeah, he can fly there now, whatever. He's driving, keeping it low profile.
Yeah, just chilling in like probably the fastest car in the town, but whatever.
And he gets out of the car and Vulture flies down in a Vulture suit that he got from who the F knows where. Because he's
a resourceful guy.
No.
No, I'm not lying. This is what the director said. The director said the reasoning why. And he said this a week before. I'm not lying. Look this up on Cinema Blend. He did an interview a week before the film, and he fully was saying spoilers. He says it takes place in the Venom universe. Yeah, Michael Keaton's in it, and it's the Michael Keaton from Spider-Man Homecoming. And people are asking, how does he get the Vulture suit? And literally the director said, and he said other stuff, but he said this: he's a resourceful guy.
Okay, here's the problem with that. In Homecoming, the reason he was able to put that suit together is because they scrapped together a bunch of tech from New York, the attack in the first Avengers.
And the Tinkerer, he had the Tinkerer help him.
Sure. There was nothing like that in this universe to cultivate that technology. That technology does not exist on Earth in this current universe. So
unless there is a way, but that's the thing. It's a lot of what ifs. We don't know. You're just letting the viewer guess.
Yeah. And so Vulture flies down and he's like, I'm somehow in this universe. I think it has something to do with Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
And they play it off like Morbius knows who Spider-Man is. So there is a Spider-Man in this universe. And so
Andrew Garfield, maybe.
And they're like, we should team up and we can do some good. And then it cuts to Morbius looking at him, and then it cuts to black. And
intriguing.
And I had to YouTube that afterwards. And when the YouTube clip ended, I put my phone down and I was like, who wants this team up? Who wants this team up? Who wants Morbius and Vulture to team up for a buddy cop flick? That is so random. It was like, I was like, so I'm like having a stroke trying to come up with what I want to say.
Because the way they're approaching it is wrong. Like, if that's the end goal, why would they put that kind of scene in a origin film for a character that we don't even really know, and have a character that we love and involve them with that? Like, to me, it would make sense to have him talk to Venom, maybe, because he now knows there's a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Venom knows that he's obviously like, ooh, like whatever the inclination of him when he's licking the TV.
Yeah, Venom was intrigued by Spider-Man.
Yeah. He was intrigued either to kill him or to be in him, literally. And that would make more sense. But you have a character like Morbius, and we don't have any idea if he has any connection to the Spider-Man in their universe. We're just guessing. With this scene, I really, really felt like the writers are just scrambling. And because of the success of No Way Home, I think they thought about it and they're like, well, what if we pulled an MCU character and have them connect here? And what if we had a beloved actor like Michael Keaton to be the Nick Fury of our Sinister Six? Somebody in the executive room was like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. Let's shoot him right now, 2 months before the film comes out. Let's film it in the backyard over here. And let's not even have the same people in the same scene, because I will say this too. It didn't even look like Jared Leto and Michael Keaton were even in the same scene. I felt like they filmed.
That's a good point.
Like it felt like, because what Jared Leto was saying, it didn't even feel like he was saying that response to the same line. I feel like he was in another scene with somebody else. But because of, and this is just a theory, because of No Way Home and its success, I really believe they just scrambled that whole sequence at the last minute. And I think that has to do with the part of the fact why they pushed it 3 months from January to April. And here's the thing. Sony might have this amazing plan, right? Maybe they do. And maybe this is the point. Maybe we're supposed to question how stupid this is. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But for right now, it just looks dumb. It just looks like they don't know what they're doing. And I really hope that's not the case. I really hope they have something under their sleeve and be like, you didn't trust us. Well, here you go. But I really feel like
this ending sequence is one of the weirdest defibrillators I've ever seen them try to do on this.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't look like it belongs to the film too. It doesn't even look like it belongs to the same film.
It's like they took the defibrillator and just put it on the wrong place. It's like they were like, this man's not breathing. Quick, we need to defibrillate his balls. Like, no, that's not where that goes.
Jimmy, get out of here. There's something wrong with you. Why did you even think? No, go away. Take the day off. Take the day off. Whoever came up with this idea, that's literally because it doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. It literally feels like because that was the thing. If they put at least a time jump stamp on the final post-credit scene, I think I would have understood what they were going for. Because that was my theory. I was like, oh, okay, what if it says 5 years later, right? There's been a lot happening. Vulture's been here for 5 years. He maybe Michael knows a Spider-Man now. And that's why when he says that line, I think Spider-Man has something to do with this. But that's probably not the case. That scene probably took place a couple days after Michael Keaton came back. Or at least a week. At least a week, I think. And I would have given it more grace if it was a time jump, because then I would have been like, okay, he took his time to be here. But also, granted, why is he so motivated on getting revenge on Spider-Man when he should just go to his family? Why isn't he more on track to go back to his wife and his daughter? Because he was a family man.
Yeah, he was. And that's true. I didn't even think about that. He does have a family to get back to. And
like, that's his motivation for everything that he does. And with this, it's like, I'm an evil man, and that's all that I am.
And another thing is that I feel like, and this is Marvel and Sony. They have a really hard time putting closure on a lot of things. And that bothers me, because I don't want this to just spiderweb, in no pun intended. Like, I don't want it to just keep branching off like that into eternity. That's part of why movies like Endgame and No Way Home were so impactful, because we had a lot of closure in a lot of ways on a lot of these characters, and it felt really rewarding. In order for them to open potential and possibility, smacking my pop filter here. In order, like, the way that they kind of opened this movie up for future installments is just not satisfying at all, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And they've been trying so hard to do the Sinister Six for so long. I feel like No Way Home, more than anything, is their springboard to just do it. Do the Amazing Spider-Man 3, and you can find some way to make the Sinister Six happen in that movie, and do it well when you have stuff like this in play from No Way Home. I know that there's like the whole memory erasure thing and whatnot. I don't know if that means that Andrew and Toby forget who Tom Holland Spider-Man is. I'm not sure about that. But like, I feel like most of the pieces for it to happen are already there. I don't know. It almost feels like they're trying to gauge interest for it, and that's just pointless. Most people have kind of accepted No Way Home as being the Sinister Six movie.
Yeah. No, yeah. Sinister 5.
Yeah.
But it's like,
still,
I just, yeah. And I think that was Sony in a way, like, teasing what they want to do. They want to make, they want to make the Sinister Six. And
but I'm not encouraged that it'll be good. I'm not encouraged that it's going to be good with this level of craftsmanship that's involved here.
And just like, because they're doing solo films doesn't necessarily mean, oh, these are still good films. It's like, no, you're just making it look even more rushed and more incoherent, because now you have a character that we know who Morbius is and his origin, but then you implement a character that really has nothing to do with his origin or his past. And it just felt like a shoehorned thing just to be like, look, Michael Keaton.
Like, it would be a really cool idea if, like, Andrew Garfield, Morbius, and Blade had to take on the Sinister Six. That sounds like a really cool idea. It can't happen because Blade's on the MCU side of things. Like, a lot of the ideas for what characters can be selected for which stories the possibilities are limited due to the rights. And I kind of feel bad saying this. I almost just wish Sony would stop, because the degree of storytelling taking place on the Disney Marvel side is so much better at coherently tying these characters together in a meaningful way. And I think it's a shame. I honestly think it's a shame that I'm even saying that, because I want to believe that these writers can create something compelling. I'm just not seeing it as it is right now. Just not. This post-credit scene was nonsense. It made no sense. If anything, it kind of reflects badly on Doctor Strange. The guy just cannot stop messing up spells.
No, I mean it doesn't make sense, especially when you bring up the point with Doctor Strange, like the whole spell, and more so in the sense of like we understand how this spell works now. Why does this character end up here? And especially why doesn't he go back when he completes the spell? Like the whole point of him, okay, the world's gonna forget because that resets everything. It never happened. So then why is he still in effect? Like, why is that still going on?
Yeah.
And maybe Sony, like I said, might have something under their sleeve and they're going to blow our minds, which I hope it's the case, but I really don't think so. I think they really just did it just to be like, ooh, look, shiny toy.
Part of me was wondering if they did it as like some kind of a mind play where they were like, oh, Michael Keaton's character was never originally from the MCU. He was always from somewhere else. But then, like you said, no, he was a family man. He had a whole life. People knew who he was. It's like, okay, that can't be then. He was from the MCU. And for them to try to retroactively say that he wasn't feels like it feels cheap and pretty unearned. Also, one of the things, like I said about this, how No Way Home was so good because it provided so much closure in a lot of ways. Another thing that bothers me is that, okay, well, if Michael Keaton got pulled into the wrong place, now Sony or Marvel or whoever can just say, oh, we can say whoever we want got pulled into the wrong place and just make stuff up. And I don't like that. I don't like that possibility is on the table now, because I feel like it creates an excuse for shoddy work. I was kind of, granted, this is not the greatest comparison, but I was kind of concerned about Endgame when they did the whole, like, how many futures did you see? 14 million, da 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 da. And I was afraid in Endgame it would kind of be used as an excuse whenever someone does something stupid and you're like, nobody would do that. That's a terrible decision. The character shouldn't do that. That the movie would just write it off and be like, oh, it just wasn't what Doctor Strange saw. Therefore, it's just not going to happen that way. And that it would be used as a scapegoat for shoddy workmanship. Fortunately, I really enjoyed Endgame. I thought it was great. But it's a similar situation to this where I feel like now shoddy workmanship can be covered up by them just being like, oh yeah, so-and-so got pulled through. Why? We said so. Were they supposed to be pulled over in the initial plans? No, but they just are now.
And that's the issue that people were saying before even like Spider-Man No Way Home was going to come out, and now Doctor Strange, where it's like the multiverse is a great concept, but it also can be a hindrance for storytelling and what you said, shoddy work. And for another case in point, another verbiage for it could be lazy writing, where it's like, oh, that never happened. It's fine. Or, oh, a fan favorite character died in a great, impactful way, but
off-screen.
We're here off screen. Or it's like, how about you just leave a story alone? You had a great ending and you want to bring it back because money and multiverse. That is potentially the direction that we're probably going to go in for the next 10 years, where it's like people are just going to, like you said, shoddy work. And another term, lazy writing, where it's like, that seems kind of convenient, but it's okay because multiverse and there's another version of this character out there. It's fine.
No.
In some cases, it's going to be cool because I can already tell, like for example, Doctor Strange is probably going to do a lot of awesome things. But when you have this, for example, this is how you don't do the multiverse. This is how you don't pull in a character because it makes no sense for what they're building. Let's get near the end here. I want to, before we give our scores, actually, I want to read a couple things to you real quick. This is part of the surprise.
This is part of the surprise? Okay.
This is the surprise. Sorry.
Oh.
I'm going to read some negative Rotten Tomato reviews for you.
All right.
I'm going to read at least 3 or 4. Let's go through some of them. Let's see. Mark Kennedy with the Associated Press. And I won't be as passionate and angry like I was with the other person from the Seattle Times. Morbius is a forgettable, often laughable entry in Sony's attempt to fill its own Spider-Man adjacent cinematic universe. A poorly edited derivative time suck. Derivative time suck. Pun intended. I just love that last part. Time suck. Thought that was clever. Cleverly stupid, but I loved it either way.
Okay.
For Fox 10 Phoenix, Caroline side. Alas, Morbius is too bound to comic book movie convention to become the overt gay vampire superhero melodrama it probably should have been. And honestly, that sounds amazing. I would have loved to seen a Milo and Michael Morbius just be like, I love you, but I have to do this. Stab.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think that would have been a clever thing. But hey, Caroline, I see what you're trying to cook for this. Matt Singer from Screen Crush. Are we sure this isn't some kind of elaborate April Fool's Day prank? 2 out of 10.
Just a totally different movie gets put out the next day.
Oh my God. That would be the greatest prank.
That would be
all
so
time.
funny. Everyone saw the bad movie, but the good movie's just in the theaters after day one.
Sony, you evil geniuses. And then, okay, we got the best one for last. This is actually a pro right here. Peter Travers from ABC News. Jared Leto goes the extra mile to bring a minor league villain from Marvel Comics to the big screen. But this botched horror fest about the so-called living vampire is less deserving of a sequel than a stake through its heart.
So he didn't like it.
I don't think this guy liked it. It doesn't even say like out of 10 what he gave it, but I'm assuming it's around like a 3 or a 2, maybe even a 1.5. But I'm gonna screenshot all these because I definitely want you guys to read along with me. Because these are just, I don't know, they're just fun to read. It's fun to hear other people's opinions. Like, okay, screw it. I guess I'll read one positive. Like, let me just find one random one. This one I kind of like. It's kind of sweet, simple, to the point. Morbius has no reason to exist as an actual movie, but maybe that's why it worked for me.
And it's hard to have an argument for that, honestly.
No, yeah, and I think that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like, I know it's not a good thing, and it's not a good film. It didn't really need to be made. I understand why they're doing it. They want to build the Sinister Six. They want to build this big catalog of awesome actors. You got Dakota Johnson coming up. You got Aaron Taylor Johnson coming up. You got Jared Leto, Tom Hardy. You got Michael Keaton. It's a great cast. To see all of them together, I would look forward to that if they actually made a good story. And at this point, overall, Sony's villain universe, it's not really working. Okay, so since I kind of gave my feelings already, I'll say my score now. I would still give it a 6.5. Like I said, I had a fine time with it. It's not good, but it's just okay. I've seen a lot better. I've seen a lot worse. It's not going to be something I run to at the theaters or something that I will be watching every year, but it will be a film that I will remember because of Matt Smith.
Okay. I know what my first number is. I just need to parse what my decimal is going to be. All right. I think I know what it is. I'm gonna go with about, I think, a 3.3. This, to me, it really was that bad, and I think the reason I didn't quite go to a 2 is because I feel like the 2s are where we kind of start to hit the quote unquote atrocious level of bad, and then the 1s are where we start to get to this movie is. That's where a movie just feels relentless, and you just need the hell to stop. But I don't feel like this movie ever quite hit that point. It was an hour and 48 minutes of characters taking huge leaps of logic and being nonsensical, and then the movie itself deciding to go completely off the rails for its post-credits sequences. And it is the kind of movie where because we're having this conversation, I will remember that I saw this movie. I can see plenty of people seeing this movie and forgetting they saw this movie.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see people being like, "Yep, I won't remember that movie in T-1 second." Oh,
Yeah.
already forgot.
Yeah, you go in the Jeremy Jan route, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually he gave
He
this
gave it
movie
a
his
dog.
lowest. Yeah, he gave
Oh,
it his
fun fact
lowest.
for you. I saw him at the screening today. I went up to him and I was like, hey, so did
you
you
met him?
really? Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
He lives around here.
dude. Yeah.
That's really cool.
He lives in Washington. I keep on forgetting that. And my friend and I went to go see the film Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Yeah.
And went up to him and was like, hey, thank you for your work. Really appreciate it. He's like, hey, thanks, man. I was like, so, Jeremy, I have a really important question to ask you. He's like, yeah, what's up? Did you really mean it when you gave Morbius that score? Dog shit. And he was like, yes, that movie is bad. Quote from Jeremy Jahns. He's like, yes, this movie is bad.
I guess this is where my surprise is. When I went to see this movie, I decided to go with a backup plan because I knew the odds were really high that when I came out of this movie, I was going to have like a metaphorical bad taste in my mouth and need a palate cleanser. I was like, I need a backup. Mom had messaged me and said that my sister Trista, that her play was opening that night. I was like, oh, I really like, and my mom was like, oh, she hasn't been on stage in years. I want to be there for opening night. And I was like, ooh, Mom's right. I should be there for that. But I still had some time in between the play and the end of Morbius. And it was a bad movie. I was like, so the movie ended and I made a plan. I went out the theater. I went down the escalator. I went out the door.
Is this the surprise? Okay, yeah. I had a feeling.
I went out the door and I took a hard left out the door, right back to the box office stand. And I said, can I please get one ticket for the 3:15 show of Everything Everywhere All at Once?
You saw it?
I did. I saw it immediately after I saw Morbius.
Oh, you jerk. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the invite. Oh my God. I'm seeing it on Monday.
And so I need to talk about it with you. I need to. I absolutely need to.
We just found our next spoiler review, my friend.
That's it. That's the one. I need to talk about this movie.
Because we really got to cap this video, but I have been, that is like one of my most anticipated films of the year. When I saw that trailer last year.
And it should be. It should be.
The performances look amazing. It looks so creative. Like I feel like we've talked about this film.
I'm not saying a thing about it except that I loved it.
So that was our review, guys. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to click that like button, and also don't forget to subscribe. And please, please don't forget to be blessed.